More sports finance. Adidas is selling Reebok to Authentic Brands Group for up to $2.5 billion as the German sporting goods company concentrates on its core brand. Adidas bought Reebok all the way back in 2006 for a price of $3.8 billion. At the time, Adidas had high hopes of returning Reebok's fortunes, or turning its fortunes around and, turning them into one of the most profitable sportswear giants in the entire world. And right before we went on break, of course, you just talked about Manchester United ramping up its investments during the pandemic, returning to winning ways as the season starts. £11 million spent on upgrading seating for disabled fans and much, much more. Joining us to discuss this, Tunde Koiki, who's a sports analyst. Tunde, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll start with Manchester United. What do you make of their infrastructure investments, stadium, hygiene, and so on and so forth?
Well, the thing about Manchester United is that they've always been market leaders in terms of creating an enabling environment for football fans in England. Back when a lot of stadiums were still like 40,000, 50,000 capacity, Manchester United have already upgraded their stadium to like 75,000, 76,000, and they are now one of the largest stadiums in Europe. So it's no surprise that they continue to push the boundaries, create better experiences for fans who are coming back to the stadium, and especially for creating better accessibility for fans who are disabled. So it's all in that line of remaining as market leaders, continuing to create an enabling environment, because going to the stadium right now is not just a sporting experience, it's an overall experience. There's catering, there's so much more that people can do. So it's not surprising that Manchester United is doing this, and I expect what will happen is that a lot of other clubs will follow suit. For example, Tottenham with their new stadium in London is already a major talking point for a lot of people. So Manchester United are just following in that vein.
And what does it mean for the finances of English clubs to have fans back in the stands?
It's incredible. It's like a shot of adrenaline at a much needed time. So according to UEFA, clubs across Europe have lost over $10 billion due to the pandemic. In fact, UEFA are now putting together almost $7 billion in terms of a rescue package for a lot of football clubs across the continent as well. And that's why you've seen, for example, in the transfer market, the summer transfer market for English clubs, there's not been as much movement as usual because a lot of these clubs are bleeding cash. You do remember during the last season, a lot of clubs are putting staff on furlough, trying to cut down on costs, because match day revenues were not available anymore, which meant that their finances, their revenue were taking a major hit. But now having fans back into the stadium, that improves things tremendously. But like I said before, the fact that they didn't have stands in the stadiums impacted greatly on their revenue, and that's why you saw that there's been little or no movement in the transfer market as regarding transfers or squad investments for a lot of these clubs.
Thank you so much, Tunde. Let's move to Adidas selling off Reebok. Some are asking or stating that it's one of the worst sports acquisitions ever. What do you make of it?
Yeah, when you consider it, the fact that they bought it for 3.8 billion and they're selling it for 2.5 billion, they've definitely made a loss of 1.3 billion. It's a no-brainer. It didn't work out. There was a time when Reebok was one of the biggest sporting brands in the world. I mean, they had shoe deals with a lot of major athletes, especially the NBA. They were like an iconic brand. I mean, rappers used to throw in Reeboks in their videos, Reeboks in their lyrics. They also work with the likes of American artists like Rick Ross, name anyone that you can think of. But somehow, Adidas didn't make a strategic decision to in terms of its management of what was one of the oldest sports brand companies. Don't forget, Reebok was actually started in 1865, I believe, in England, but it hasn't worked out well. But now, if you look at the acquisition of Nike, example, for the acquisition of Nike by Umbro by Nike, now that was a masterstroke because the national team had the contract, had a kitchen contract with Umbro. Nike now sold Umbro in the same year. They now got the Nike kitchen contract for England. Now that's massive because England naturally sell like 1 million jerseys a year, but when they do qualify for major competitions, they sell like 3 million jerseys a year as well. So that's a major kitchen deal that comes into Nike. So it was a strategic acquisition that helped them to get a bigger brand into their portfolio. But for Reebok and Adidas, it was a marriage that was not meant, that wasn't well thought out. They've been overtaken by smaller brands like Under Armour. Under Armour are now kitting national teams, kitting some of the major football clubs in the world. You cannot find a major football club in the world that is being kitted by Reebok today. They went into other things like CrossFit. They were trying to get into the athlete, just a leisure wear market. It didn't work out. They've been overtaken by the likes of Lululemon. So it was a time that I think it was a business decision that it's not working out. It's better to ditch it now while we still can get some kind of value for it.
Thank you so much for that, Tunde. Very in-depth there. How much of this loss, if at all, would you attribute to the pandemic?
Yeah, a lot of it actually goes to the pandemic as well. But because, a lot of people are locked down at home, people are not getting out. So there was nobody really buying, football gear or athletic gear. So what we did see was an increase in workout gear. The likes of Lululemon, Under Armour, they made brisk sales. I mean, their sales went through the roof as much as 65%, in some cases 70%. So they made quite a killing. But for Reebok, it was not the same, despite the fact that they were marketing themselves as a workout apparel, especially for CrossFit athletes. So they took a major hit now. But interestingly, even as they are being sold now, their sales are beginning to rise. So what they have to do now is they have to reinvent themselves, not only as a sportswear company, but as a lifestyle brand as well, which means that they can cross over from, being mainstream athletic apparel suppliers to also leisure wear as well. It's kind of the same way that Red Bull reinvented itself from being an energy drink company to an entertainment company. I mean, see Red Bull with everything that I do with extreme sports, entertainment as well. That's what Reebok needs to do. They need a quantum leap. It's not going to cut it just getting endorsement deals with major athletes and major figures anymore. They have to reinvent themselves because the landscape is shifting tremendously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on the energy drink on Red Bull is the guy who jumped from outer space into the Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, that was a big PR stunt that got a lot of attention. Do you think Reebok can fare better under its new management?
Oh, absolutely. So the new owners, they also have experience in owning lifestyle brands as well. I believe they also own rights to Rockaway and one of Rihanna's clothing lines as well. Basically, what Reebok needs now is a new direction. At a point in time, national teams are wearing Reebok to the FIFA World Cup. You cannot find, I dare you to find a football club now that is now being kitted by Reebok. You will not find anyone. So it's gone from being the number 4 kit manufacturer in the world, sporting goods manufacturer in the world, to being non-existent, to being overtaken by, names that didn't exist before. Look at the Premier League now. 20 teams. We are now seeing the likes of Joma. We're now seeing the likes of Sarah Brown. I know you can't even pronounce their names. These are people that ordinarily did not exist when Reebok was striding the landscape. So they need some kind of reinvention. They need new ideas. They need new thinking. They need a new direction because, like I said, they are coming up against giants like Nike and Adidas and Puma who have dominated this market for years. And new players are coming into it as well. And they want a piece of that pie. So Reebok are basically starting from scratch, but I think they still have some goodwill and they can work on that.
Great stuff. Finally, I guess sports apparel sales, you see that rebounding this year, I guess, from where we were with the pandemic last year?
Oh, absolutely. Because the way everything is going on around the world, more people are getting vaccinated, so sporting competitions are opening. We saw the Premier League opening weekend. We saw capacity crowds also in the United States as well. Sporting competitions are going on in the NBA, the NFL. Everything is back to normal now. So the more people who go outside, who go outdoors, the more inclined they are to buy sporting apparel. And they will only go for the top brands, the ones that you speak directly to them, the Nikes, the Adidas. But like I said, Reebok still have some goodwill, but they have to do some major reinvention in order to get back into that market. But I expect sales of the traditional, apparel like football jerseys, for example, tracksuits. I expect those to rebound because, like I said, sporting competitions are opening up. People are going back to the stadium, and people are getting back to, the world is not normal, but it's getting back to a semblance of what we used to have.
Great stuff. Sports analyst Tunde Koiki. Tunde, thank you so much for taking us through the Manchester United investment during the pandemic news and, of course, Adidas loss on Reebok sale.